Today, we're exploring the book How to Be an Imperfectionist by Stephen Guise.
今天我们探索的书籍是《如何成为不完美主义者》，作者史蒂芬·盖斯。
After watching this video, you will learn
看完这个影片，你将学到
1. What makes perfectionism a poison?
一、为什么完美主义是毒药？
2. The 5 major dangers of perfectionism.
二、完美主义5大危害。
3. The power of embracing imperfection.
三、拥抱不完美的力量。
4. Practical steps to overcome perfectionism.
四、克服完美主义的实用步骤。
Do you ever feel overwhelmed by the need to get everything just right, only to find yourself stuck in an endless loop of doubt and procrastination?
你是否曾因为需要一切都做到完美而感到不知所措，却发现自己陷入无止境的怀疑和拖延中？
Or maybe you put off chasing your dreams because you're afraid of not being perfect enough.
或者你可能因为害怕自己不够完美而推迟追逐梦想。
You're not alone.
你并不孤单。
What if the key to achieving more, without the constant pressure, was simply letting go of the need to be flawless?
如果实现更多的关键，在没有持续压力的情况下，只是放下对完美的需求呢？
It's time to break free from the chains of perfectionism and unlock the freedom to truly live and grow.
是时候摆脱完美主义的枷锁，解锁真正生活和成长的自由了。
Welcome. Join our loving and patient group as we happily learn English together.
欢迎你与一群有爱又耐心的伙伴们开心学英文吧！
Don't miss the takeaway and quotes at the end of the video.
别错过影片尾声的精华摘要和金句卡片。
Chapter 1. The Poison of Perfectionism.
第一章：完美主义的毒药。
Imagine this. You have an important task to finish, something that matters deeply.
想象一下，你有一个重要的任务要完成，这件事情对你来说非常重要。
But instead of diving in, you pause, planning each detail, stressing over every possible mistake until it feels safer to avoid it altogether.
但是，与其直接投入其中，你却停下来，计划每一个细节，为每一个可能的错误感到焦虑，直到感觉完全避免它更安全。
It convinces us that anything less than flawless is failure, that every project must be a masterpiece, and every choice must be the right one.
它让我们相信，任何不完美都是失败，每个项目都必须是杰作，每个选择都必须是正确的。
But Stephen Guise argues that this mindset doesn't just hold us back. It seeps into our well-being, bringing anxiety, indecision, and even low self-esteem.
但史蒂芬·盖斯认为，这种心态不仅仅是阻碍我们，它还渗透到我们的福祉中，带来焦虑、优柔寡断，甚至低自尊。
Emma loved writing.
艾玛热爱写作。
As a child, she'd fill notebooks with stories, but by the time she was working on her first novel, writing had become something she dreaded.
作为孩子，他会用故事填满笔记本，但当他开始创作第一部小说时，写作变成了他所畏惧的事情。
Each sentence she wrote was followed by 20 minutes of picking it apart.
他写下的每一句话后面都伴随着20分钟的拆解。
She'd delete, rewrite, and reread her work obsessively, her dream of storytelling buried under a relentless need for perfection.
他会删除、重写并反复阅读自己的作品，他对讲故事的梦想被对完美的不断需求埋没了。
Hours at her desk produced only a few strained paragraphs, none of which ever felt good enough.
在桌子前花了几个小时，只产出几段紧绷的段落，没有一段感觉足够好。
One night, after nearly giving up, a friend suggested, "What if you wrote without worrying if it was perfect?"
有一天晚上，在快要放弃之后，一位朋友建议，如果你写作时不担心它是否完美怎么样？
At first, the idea sounded impossible, but the next day, Emma decided to try.
起初，这个想法听起来不可能，但第二天，艾玛决定试试。
She ignored the urge to edit every word and simply wrote.
她忽略了编辑每一个单词的冲动，只是写作。
The words flowed without interruption, and for the first time in years, her story began to take shape.
文字毫无阻碍地流淌出来，多年来第一次，她的故事开始成型。
It wasn't flawless, but it was hers, alive, raw and real.
它并不完美，但它是她自己的，活生生、真实而原始。
Emma felt a thrill she hadn't experienced since childhood.
艾玛感受到了一种自童年以来未曾体验过的兴奋。
She realized she didn't need her work to be perfect. She needed it to feel true.
她意识到，她并不需要自己的作品是完美的，她需要的是她感觉真实。
That day, she let go of the impossible chase for perfection and, in doing so, rediscover her love for writing.
那一天，她放下了对完美的不可能追求，在此过程中重新找回了对写作的热爱。
Chapter 2: Addressing the 5 Core Issues.
第二章，解决5个核心问题。
1. Fear of failure. For a perfectionist, failure isn't just a learning step, it's a nightmare.
失败的恐惧，对于完美主义者来说，失败不仅仅是学习的一步，而是一场噩梦。
2. Fear of judgment. Often, perfectionists imagine every eye on them, scrutinizing each tiny flaw.
评价的恐惧，完美主义者经常想象每一双眼睛都在注视着自己，仔细检查每一个小缺陷。
3. Procrastination. When tasks feel like they need to be just right, we put them off.
拖延，当任务感觉需要恰到好处时，我们会推迟它们。
Lisa's office was a mountain of clutter she avoided daily, too overwhelmed by the idea of organizing it perfectly.
丽莎的办公室是一堆她每天都避免面对的杂物，因为她对于完美整理的想法感到无法承受。
One day, her friend Sarah suggested, "What if it doesn't need to be perfect? Just try tackling a small part of it."
有一天，她的朋友莎拉建议，如果她不需要完美怎么办？只需尝试处理它的一小部分。
Skeptical but desperate, Lisa decided to start with a single pile of papers on her desk, setting aside her usual need for perfection.
虽然怀疑，但又绝望，丽莎决定从桌子上的一堆纸开始，放下她对完美的通常需求。
To her surprise, sorting through that pile was easier than she expected.
令她惊讶的是，整理那堆纸比她预期的要容易。
Slowly, she found herself clearing more papers, then a drawer, then a shelf, letting go of things she no longer needed.
渐渐的，她发现自己清理了更多的文件，然后是一个抽屉，再然后是一个架子，放下了她不再需要的东西。
After a week, her office looked completely different, not perfect, but functional and calm.
1周后，她的办公室看起来完全不同，不是完美，但功能性强且平静。
Lisa realized her need for perfection had been the real obstacle, and embracing imperfection was what finally allowed her to make progress.
丽莎意识到，她对完美的需求才是真正的障碍，而拥抱不完美才让她最终取得进展。
4. Controlling behavior. Perfectionists often struggle to delegate or go with the flow.
控制行为，完美主义者往往难以委派或随波逐流。
5. Emotional sensitivity. Being deeply affected by criticism or minor setbacks is another core issue.
情感敏感性，深受批评或小挫折影响是另一个核心问题。
Chapter 3: The Freedom of Imperfectionism.
第3章，不完美主义的自由。
What if the way to true success and happiness was through imperfection?
如果通往真正成功和幸福的方法是通过不完美呢？
Guys introduces this idea of imperfectionism as a path to freedom, a way to live life with less pressure, more creativity, and genuine satisfaction. 盖斯提出了无完美主义的概念，作为通向自由的一条道路，一种以更少压力、更高创造力和真实满足感生活的方法。He explains that embracing imperfection allows us to take risks, try new things, and accept setbacks as part of the journey.
他解释说，拥抱不完美使我们能够冒险、尝试新事物，并接受挫折作为旅程的一部分。
Consider Julia, a cook who wanted to start a food blog.
考虑一下茱莉亚，一位想要开设食物博客的厨师。
At first, she was terrified that her photos weren't professional enough or her recipes weren't unique enough.
起初，她非常害怕自己的照片不够专业，或者食谱不够独特。
But when she allowed herself to post imperfectly, she discovered something amazing. Her readers loved her authenticity.
但当她允许自己发布不完美的内容时，她发现了一件惊人的事情：她的读者喜爱她的真实性。
They didn't want perfect, they wanted real.
他们不想要完美，他们想要真实。
Guys encourages readers to adopt what he calls imperfectionist actions.
盖斯鼓励读者采取他所称的无完美行动。
Instead of overthinking, just start.
与其过度思考，不如直接开始。
Instead of comparing, just do your best and move on.
与其比较，不如全力以赴并继续前进。
He provides exercises like the Imperfect Action Challenge, where you commit to taking one action each day that embraces imperfection, whether it's speaking up in class even if you're nervous or trying a hobby just for fun, regardless of skill level.
他提供了向无完美行动挑战的练习，在这里你承诺每天采取一项拥抱不完美的行动，无论是在课堂上发言，即使你很紧张，还是随便尝试一项爱好，不论技能水平如何。
Each action chips away at the fear of not being perfect.
每一个行动都削弱了对于不完美的恐惧。
Chapter 4: Practical Steps to Overcome Perfectionism.
第4章，克服完美主义的实用步骤。
Setting imperfect goals. Instead of making goals that are strict and daunting, Guys suggest setting imperfect goals that allow flexibility and growth.
设定无完美目标，盖斯建议设置无完美目标，而不是设定严格且令人生畏的目标，这样可以允许灵活性和成长。
If you want to start exercising, don't set a goal of running 5 miles every day.
如果你想开始锻炼，不要设定每天跑5英里的目标。
Instead, set a goal to move daily, whether it's a short walk, a gym session, or even dancing in your room.
相反，设定一个每天活动的目标，无论是短暂的散步、健身房的锻炼，还是甚至在房间里跳舞。
This flexible approach makes it easier to stick with it.
这种灵活的方法使得坚持下去变得更容易。
Celebrating small wins. Guys talks about the power of acknowledging each step forward, no matter how small.
庆祝小胜利，盖斯谈到了承认每一步前进的重要性，无论多么微小。
Each win, however minor, reinforces the idea that progress matters more than perfection.
每一个胜利，无论多么微小，都强化了进步比完美更重要的观念。
When Nathan started learning a new language, he celebrated every time he completed a lesson, even if it was just a few minutes.
当内森开始学习一门新语言时，他每完成一课就庆祝一次，即使只是几分钟。
He didn't wait until he was fluent to feel proud. He celebrated the process.
他并不等到自己流利才感到自豪，他庆祝的是这个过程。
Creating a safe zone for imperfection. Guys encourages creating spaces where it's okay to make mistakes, whether it's a journal, a hobby, or a supportive community.
创建一个无完美安全区，盖斯鼓励创造可以犯错的空间，无论是日记、爱好还是支持性的社区。
This safe zone lets you practice imperfection without the fear of judgment.
这个安全区让你在没有评价恐惧的情况下练习不完美。
Emily was known for her precise, beautiful artwork, but over time, her love for art became weighed down by a need for perfection.
艾米丽以她精确、美丽的艺术作品而闻名，但随着时间的推移，她对艺术的热爱被对完美的需求所压垮。
She'd sit for hours, obsessing over every line, and the joy she once felt began to fade.
她会坐上几个小时，对每一条线条都过于执着，曾经感受到的快乐开始消退。
One day, she read about creating an imperfect art journal, a place to draw without any pressure to be perfect.
有一天，她读到关于创建无完美艺术日记的内容，这是一个可以随意画画而不需要完美的地方。
Curious but hesitant, she decided to try it.
虽然好奇但又犹豫，她决定试试。
Flipping open a blank journal, she filled the first page with random swirls, squiggles, and a wobbly, smiley face.
翻开一本空白日记，她在第一页上填满了随意的漩涡、曲线和一个摇摇欲坠的笑脸。
It wasn't beautiful, but it felt freeing.
它并不美丽，但感觉很自由。
For the first time in years, she drew for herself, without judgment.
几年来第一次，她为自己画画，没有评价。
Over the next days, she returned to her journal, filling pages with messy sketches, quick doodles, and splashes of color.
在接下来的几天里，她回到她的日记中，填满了凌乱的素描、快速的涂鸦和颜色的泼洒。
She began to feel a spark she hadn't felt in ages, the joy of creating simply for the sake of it.
她开始感受到一种她已久未感受到的火花，单纯为了创作而创作的快乐。
Emily realized that embracing imperfection had brought her love for art back, and in her messy pages, she found the beauty she'd been missing all along.
艾米丽意识到，拥抱不完美让她重新找回了对艺术的热爱，而在她凌乱的页面中，她找到了她一直缺失的美丽。
Practicing self-compassion. Finally, Guys stresses the importance of self-compassion.
练习自我同情。最后，盖斯强调自我同情的重要性。
Being kind to ourselves when we make mistakes isn't just comforting, it's a powerful way to build resilience and confidence.
当我们犯错时，对自己友善不仅仅是安慰，这是一种建立韧性和信心的有力方式。
When Robert received a lower grade than he wanted, he practiced self-compassion by reminding himself that he did his best and that one grade didn't define him.
当罗伯特得到比他想要的低分时，他通过提醒自己已经尽力而为，以及一个分数并不能定义他来练习自我同情。
This allowed him to focus on learning rather than punishing himself for not being perfect.
这使他能够专注于学习，而不是因为自己不是完美而惩罚自己。
Takeaway: Practical steps to apply imperfectionism.
实用步骤以实现不完美主义。
1. Set flexible, achievable goals.
1. 设定灵活且可实现的目标。
2. Celebrate progress, not just outcomes.
2. 庆祝进展，而不仅仅是结果。
3. Create safe spaces to explore without judgment.
3. 创建安全空间来无评判的探索。
4. Practice self-compassion to build confidence and improve over time.
4. 练习自我慈悲，以建立自信并随时间逐渐进步。
It's easier to change your mind and emotions by taking action than it is to change your actions by trying to think and feel differently.
通过采取行动来改变你的思维和情绪，比试图改变你的行为更容易。
Thanks for watching. Subscribe so you don't miss out on more amazing books.
谢谢收看，订阅以便不错过更多精彩好书。